All right, 2020 Silverado, the V8, Radiator, doing a Radiator. Yes, a Radiator in a 5-year-old truck. What a disgrace. Look at this. Big old crack right in it. No two ways about it. Horrible, horrible. Anyway, I want to go over the things that I wished I had known going into it, because this one was a little bit of a pickle to get out of there. But this disclaimer, this video, my delivery, it might be a little unnatural. That's because it's recorded in reverse order. I started when I already had the old radiator out, new radiator going in, and I kind of just recorded the takes as I put it back together as if I was taking it apart. It might be a little weird, gonna edit it back in the right order, but yeah, if it seems weird, that's because it is. Anyway, first question, if this is the question that you're here for, I did not have to discharge the refrigerant. Thank goodness. Don't have to touch that expensive gaseous gold right there. It's a little tricky. It seemed like I would have to disconnect it to move the condenser more. That ended up not being the case. You don't have to discharge refrigerant. All right, but let's get rolling here. First thing, disconnect the negative battery terminal. We are going to be removing the fuse box here. Don't want any unpleasantness with all that, so disconnect the negative right up there on the end. Then remove this intake here. Got 7mm worm drive clamps here, and one more down there on the throttle body itself. This hose right here, push hard there, pull and twist, and that'll work its way off. If you're watching this this video, 5+ years from now, when these plastics are going to start degrading, it might be a good idea to have this breather line or a substitute for it on hand before digging into this, just in case you break it doing that, because you do have to reef on it a little bit. All right, then this will rotate up, and there's a little awkward kind of pin there that interlocks with this junk down here, and it can be a pain in the neck to get off of there. It was a bit of a pain for me, but it did come off. I think you can also just remove that bolt right there, and then that whole bracket will come off with the intake there. All right, then we've got a bunch of those little push pin retainers. I think, are we missing a bumper there? Anyway, we got push pin retainers that go in there to get this whole little cowl off right here. You can probably remove this. I don't have time for a phone call right now. I'm sorry. Yeah. This is more difficult to do with one hand. You could just take most of that handle off. Make it a little bit easier, but it was not required in this case. All right, now that we have access in there, this guy right here will need this space here. This thing wraps kind of around the side there. So remove that tab, and then it will pop out of the actual air filter box at the bottom there. And then you can kind of finesse and wiggle that thing out through this way, and then you can really just let it sit right there. It won't be in the way if you just have this whole plastic piece just right in there, tucked away. So, recap quick. Negative battery terminal, air intake piece here. Careful with that breather hose, and then the cowl off here. And then we'll be moving on. Alrighty, up next, we're going to either remove these or just put them out of the way. You can loosen that. You can remove that bolt, loosen this one, and just pop it up and put it out of the way like that. Or you can remove the whole thing. It doesn't really matter. Same thing on this side. We're going to remove the horn, 10mm nut right there. Connector down on the very bottom, kind of left-hand side. If you're looking under the hood like this, it's a little difficult to show on camera, but it does have one of those red locking tabs, so you'll need to move that locking tab down and disconnect it that way. This whole thing will kind of like rock and twist it's a little tricky because there's a long tab up in there that kind of retains it. So anyway, get that out of your way. You'll need to get back behind it. It makes it a lot easier. And then on both the top and bottom, we have these little shrouds right here. Upper CR-FM dual fan, a lower one down beneath. CR-FM just stands for the 4 slurs that you'll be using the most during this job. But this just unclips right here. There are, or were, possibly tabs on the sides there. Yep, right around there. Kind of the same deal underneath. You can see part of it right here. That is that lower shroud. It's got the same kind of pinch tabs as up here, and you'll just need to pop off that bottom cover right here to get it off. 13 millimeter mirror image on the other side as well. But take all those off and then we will move on. All right, next let's get into these right here. These are going to be held on by a bunch of these little Christmas tree style fasteners. And they're just going to be up and down there. Find your preferred prying implement of choice, whatever. Then behind that little flap there, we're going to have one screw, 10 millimeter head, right. Oh, I can't see it. I don't know if you can. Let me feel for it. Oh, yeah. Holding this line right down. Oh, goodness. You can't see. Can't see nothing. Hold on. Let's see here. Can I show it to you? Can I even show it to you? Or is this just going to be something that you'll have to find? There it is. That right center of the frame. That screw right there. That will be coming out once it's revealed. And, pardon the camera work, we'll have a little bit more on this side here. The last part is hard to show you, but it's where this piece right here is going to stay captive to the condenser. But it does click into the radiator right here and right here. There's a little tab you push down and it pulls out, or you can break it like I did on one of them anyway. And that is going to be that's going to be a pain in the neck to do at this stage. You might have to come to part of that later and for those tabs on the side. But while we're up here, let's look at the fuse panel. This threw me for a loop for a while because I loosened all these, or so I thought, and it still didn't come off. They really turned for quite a while. So loosen them all, tug on it, loosen them some more, tug on it if it's not coming off for you anyway. Loosen them some more, tug on it. Eventually it will come off. Undo that nut. Positive off. Then once those are fully loose, then it will come free from those connectors. These come out of here. You'll have to push these little tabs in on the side and at the ends there. That's what locks these in. So push those tabs, tug on them. Once they come out, just push them out of the way. Wherever you can get them, that's just out of your way. This box down here is labeled with what connector goes where. So the black one is there. This one will say gray underneath, blue underneath that one, green underneath that one, so you can't really lose your spot. So just throw them off to the side. Don't have to worry about it. And then there's a 10 millimeter bolt there and one more 10 millimeter bolt there. And then this tray on the bottom will also come off once you have these connectors unseated from it. These just kind of slot into some grooves in the side there, and that's all there is to that. It's not fastened from the bottom or anything like I thought it was. It's just one screw there, get the connectors loose. Oh, and this tab right here, just one little push tab. That'll be the last part, and then this whole plastic piece will pop off and out of the way. All right, next let's look at our upper radiator hose and bleeder hose. Nothing special here, just spring clamps. Take those off. And then the other two inputs here to the radiator or oil cooler. If you've done radiators before that have a transmission or oil cooler before, then you're probably familiar with this. If not, this one's kind of a pain in the neck because it's so close on there. They make a tool to spread the spring clip here. I'll show you one that's already off of it. Yep. It looks just like this. And it clips into those slots there. And they make a tool that sticks in there and spreads them. Barring that, just use a pick here. And most radiators already come with these clips, but just in case, I usually like to try to save them. So find where the open end is, reach down and try to pull it up, and then you might want to have another pick or a pocket screwdriver, because once it starts to be a little bit of the way up, then I like to try to put something in there just to grab it. About like, yeah. All right, can you see what's going on there? Have it grabbed with the pick and then hold it with my thumb and then take the whole thing off like that. Same thing with the one all the way down there. That little black collar, same thing as right here. It's going to want to slide off. When you are installing the new radiator and you're putting these lines back in, put just a little bit of motor oil onto the end of the cooler line that goes in there, just to make it slide in a little bit easier. It can be a little bit of a pain to get it to seat all the way, but it will go in eventually and a little easier, like I said, if you have some motor oil on there. All right, a good time to look at radiator fan connectors. These are a little different than usual. You'll reach down, you can't really see them from up here. You'll reach down and you'll feel this weird thing on the side. That's just a locking tab. Normally it's pressed in, I think about like that, maybe. Yeah, normally it's pressed in, so you'll have to, while it's still plugged in, you'll have to pull on that so that the tab will actually be able to press down and unlock. But anyway, so one here, diagonally on the bottom, facing outward. One here, same kind of orientation on the bottom, facing outward. Same locking mechanism on that one. A little bit of a pain in the neck, but not too bad. So we got hoses, got those connectors, and our cooler lines. And then after we do that, we'll be loosening up this guy here and getting into our actual fan assembly, taking that out. All right, next is going to be removal of the radiator fans, and I'm going to show you the assembly off the vehicle, because then it's easier to see some of the stuff at the bottom. But starting at the top, you'll have a few of these clips for hoses and pipes, 2 bolts on either side. That is what secures the fan assembly to the radiator itself. There's the bolt holes there. In fact, let's look at it on the radiator, the old one anyway, just to get a better idea here. All right, so we have bolts there and there. We have just these clips here, and once those bolts are done, then it just slides out of there. Now it's also going to be held in by the wire connectors, and these clips here will have different hoses and pipes in them. They're kind of a pain in the neck to get to from the top, but I did have luck just taking a pocket screwdriver and popping them out that way. The hoses pop out, lines pop out, and then once you have the electrical connectors undone, both at the bottom kind of diagonally there, out to the sides, all the hoses and lines freed up from it. So we have one here, two there, one there, and then two at the top. And I believe that's it. You got radiator hose here, that's hard to miss. Then the whole thing just lifts out and comes off. So I get down in here. You might have to, at that point, it's probably a good idea to have this unbolted. That bolts up right there. And this side of that cooler, transmission cooler, I believe, has one bolt over there on that side. And on this side, and this was kind of a pain in the neck to get out of there, but a little bit of prying and pulling did it. But we have this piece right here, which is slotted into the condenser there. It's a lot easier if these are freed up from each other rather than still connected to each other. That lets you get a lot of play in this hose right here for helping you to get that fan assembly out. All right, and then finally, we are just removing the lower radiator hose and then separating the radiator from the condenser. We have these tabs at the top that press in. Condenser will pull up and away from the radiator, and that is we have these locking tabs on top and then just a slot on the bottom. Same thing on the other side as well. Locking tab on the top, slot on the bottom. Condenser comes a little bit up and away from the radiator. Once you have that separated, then the radiator will come out. It'll fight you a little bit. You'll have to play around with this line here. Again, that's why it's nice to have this unbolted from the condenser to let it move freely, let that line move freely. And then you kind of have to pull it that way and away from this stuff here so that the peg here on the bottom won't catch on that and stop you. So you just have to fiddle with it a little bit to get it to come on out, but then the new one goes in and everything goes back together the same way. All right, once you have it all together and you start adding coolant, one thing that I like to do is to disconnect one of the heater hoses. That gives one more route for air to escape and also allows coolant to go ahead and fill up the heater hoses in the heater core, however much of that is drained out. Otherwise, that has to be purged while it's running, and you've got a decent amount of air trapped in there because that's kind of a high point there, and there's no real way for it to make its way out to the reservoir. So this just helps that process along. Once the coolant starts coming out of the heater core, then you know you've got it filled up. But you've got our fill line right there. I've just got it just a little bit above that, and I'm just waiting. This coolant, as you add it, it drains into the system really slowly for some reason. So just be patient with it. I only got in about probably half a gallon or so before it started slowing down on me, and it's taken about a gallon since then, just really, really slowly. So let that work its way through. Be patient with it. Don't rush it and wind up starting with not enough coolant in it. But anyway, I think that about wraps us up. Just finish out the rest the same way you do any cooling system job, and that should do it. You all have a good one.